So what we have here on our first slide, this is your poster of ESFT, right? So some of you said, everybody keeps telling us to turn to the model. What does that even mean, right? Well, here's your model. And so what we are going to be doing is looking at what do each of these components mean in terms of the logic model. How do each of these connect to the logic model? As a systemic family therapist practicing ESFT, we say and we believe the individual is embedded in a system that is complex and it has lots of layers to it, and the system evolves across time as well. So as we think about the social ecology, the reason we have to start there is because we have to look at the family systemically. That means we have to look at the family developmentally, relationally, contextually, and trauma informed. How do we use the logic model to help us stick to these really fundamental concepts of ESFT? So we broke it down for you. So this is page 1 of the logic model. So let's start with the problem, okay? So this is the reason, why are we in treatment? Why are we here? So, right, how did we get here and why do we show up relationally for these individuals? The way that we look at our target population is informed by what we believe. So think about those. We just looked at our social ecology, and I just was hammering home those fundamental concepts of ESFT and how we look at families, right? So that's embedded in what we believe about this target population. So if you're ever sitting there and going, oh, I'm so burnt out on this family, I don't know what to think anymore. Turn to your logic model. Look at the target population. We believe that there is an enduring pattern of poor emotion regulation that is causing extreme high-risk reactions, derailing development and impairing relationships. People aren't the problem. The relationships are the problem. So now some of you are like, I've been here a month. I don't quite know what to do. Ooh, you know how you know what to do? Look at the logic model, right? So everybody take a look at that section that says key components of treatment. How do we show up? But we believe there is resiliency, strength, and resources in people's systems. So we work those primary targets. And I tell you what, when you work your primary targets and you build and expand the family's ability, their eco map will look different at discharge. So if you guys are thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, think first, freak out second. Turn to the logic model and look at this section. What are the key components of treatment? What can I be doing in this family's house when I show up? Because every house you show up at, you can do these things. Okay, now, here we get this other thing on the right-hand side, the treatment outcomes. Guess what? These treatment outcomes are connected to your 4 primary targets of assessment and change. When we do relational family therapy, we will see a change in the family functioning in treatment. Well, what kind of changes can I expect? We're going to see changes in attachment, in parental leadership, in co-parenting, and using our alliances, and in emotion regulation. Yes, Edward. Well, yeah, I mean, we're totally going to see a change in the structure if the caregiver is maintaining relationship rules, right? And as we look through these other mediating outcomes, establishing, maintaining emotional safety, make it nurturing, accepting, de-escalating, right? The change in structure will be a result of increased parental leadership, increased co-caregiving, increased emotion regulation, and increased attachment. Now, the reason we have to focus on that the relationship is the client is because if you try to control the symptomology of the child, you will not be successful. The change in family functioning results in a decrease in child symptomology. So when we think about that, what does that mean then for the work that you are doing? Highlights that the work has to be done through the caregivers. So what we want to do is unbalance that structure and figure out what structure do we need for that positive interaction pattern to happen. And ultimately, you're going to hear me say this 100 times, just talking about it will not be enough. You've been hearing me say these words over and over again. What are primary targets of assessment and change? This is how we measure family functioning, executive function skills, emotion regulation, co-caregiver alliance, and the parent-child relationship. Often, families will need work. Almost every family I think we get needs work across all 4 factors because they're not really standalones. You have to practice it and enact it. So that brings us to the back page of the logic model, page 2. So the front page, we saw the key components of treatment. So we know what the therapist is, how the therapist is showing up. So when the therapist is showing up and we're trying to move a family through treatment, we do that using these tasks or activities while we're there. So if someone's like, oh my gosh, it's my first session with the family, what do I need to be doing? That when we are doing relational work, it's not linear. We don't go A, then B, then C, then D. It would be great. So what's great about the logic model is that you don't have to move perfectly through treatment. You work these stages and activities as you need as you're in treatment, right? Because so often people get stuck on, well, I can't enact anything unless I'm joined. Well, maybe the crisis is happening because of a problem with the family functioning. So the logic model also tells us where people think they're, like, how do we know where people are at in treatment? It describes it for you. So it's not a mystery.